Welcome to Sacred Time. I'm Dennis Kaminsky. He's Maurice Starr, and we're just going to jump right into today's show. All right, Maurice, you call yourself Big Blurred, which for anybody who doesn't know what that means, blurred is what's the conjunction again?
I think it's called that.
Conjunction?
A conjunction, a combined word.
Combined word. Blurred means black nerd, so you seem like the perfect person to start this subject with. It was just announced recently that Warner Bros. Is officially going ahead with a reboot of the Superman film. In this reboot, they are going to be prioritizing a black Kal-El, and they are going to obviously be casting a black actor to play Superman, as well as a black director to direct the film, although J.J. Abrams is going to remain as the head producer, but Warner Bros. Said it would be tone deaf to have J.J. producing that film. First, what are your thoughts on this news? And secondly, what are your thoughts on, this has been a conversation a little bit more recently in the whole comic book world after the Falcon and the Winter Soldier came out, and the primary plot of that show was, spoiler alert for anybody who hasn't seen it, Sam Wilson is becoming the new Captain America, and is the country ready for a black Captain America? Whether they're ready or not, we currently have a black Captain America and a black Superman, which has raised a debate online as to whether or not comic book film should be focusing on originally black characters, or if it is okay to recast a white character as a black character as long as the story is genuine. So, Maurice, to you, what are your thoughts and opinions on this subject?
I think that last bit, what you just said about the story being genuine, is something that is very important to me because the idea of a black Superman is very cool, right? I mean, growing up, you always look up to the guy as much as you can have your favorites, your Wolverines, your Batmans, your Green Lanterns, your Moon Knight, if that's who your favorite guy is. You can have all those characters, but there's always going to be Superman, right? On either side of the Marvel DC world of comics. So to see like something new, a difference, changing him from, hey, he's this white guy from another planet to he's this black guy from another planet, and of course we see that because we're here on Earth and that's how we see it. It's interesting, and I guess my main thing, like you said though, is I'm hoping when they go about writing this and putting it all together that it is something genuine, because with Sam Wilson becoming Captain America, it brought all these questions and all these ideas that didn't just get erased because, well, we're in a comic book world, and even though this is based on Earth, this is a different Earth. Mm-hmm. It brought those real potential issues you have with anything. I mean, look at how it was when Barack Obama became president. That was something never seen before. That was something very new to people. People didn't know how you supposed to go about certain ideas and certain arguments that seem like it's a no-brainer for every other president, but with this one,
like, do we call him Mr. President or do we call him Mr. President? That was one of the issues I remember they were having, whether or not they should go with a hard R on the Mr. at the beginning.
And hey, it's the point that as much as I get there's people that you go to comics and you go to that type of media for like an escape from reality. There's also a way where you can still tell these stories and still talk about these topics, but in a way that's respectful to the comic itself, to the material. So in this way, like you hate to say it, but of course it's like, if right now is the time where you decide you want to have a black Superman, it's the perfect time to capitalize on it. So it's something where I just hope the intention, and with them saying, hey, we don't think JJ should direct this, we need to get someone more appropriate for this. It's a film, right?
Yeah, it's a film. Yeah.
Yes. So more appropriate for the film. I like that move. I just hope that those are the thoughts that are taken in consideration with this. And I don't want there to be racism on Krypton. That's my number one thing. If you tell me even on another planet, people are still looking at each other and going, oh, there's a problem with how you look, I'm kind of out. But I think there's some cool ideas that could come from it. So I'm staying optimistic.
Yeah, I mean, you always want to stay optimistic with stuff like this, right? Because I admittedly am not a big enough comic book fan to worry about certain boxes being checked, right? Because some of those boxes I'm not even familiar with. What I will say to the topic, I don't necessarily mind recasting black characters as traditionally white heroes, right? I think sometimes it feels like it's done with the best intentions. A good example of that would be Miles Morales. Um, but sometimes it does feel like they're just trying to meet a quota and they're too unoriginal to come up with any innovative original characters. A really good example would be I've been learning a little bit more about the history of the Falcon, and he's an incredibly interesting character. And I don't mind within the context of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Sam taking over the like a Captain America type role. But then the second that you give him that name, now the Falcon identity is essentially gone. Do you know what I mean? And
Yeah.
it's weird because Falcon is a black character, right? Like comic book fans have always had somebody like him to look at, and now he's not a thing anymore. Now that guy is just Captain America. Do you know what I mean? So it's an interesting concept. Like I said, within the context of the MCU, I thought they handled it pretty well. I didn't really have any issues with it. I also like that he kept the Falcon suit with the shield. So visually, it's still the same guy to me. This one's a little bit different. I don't know yet. I have a lot of reservations. The gentleman writing it is Ta-Nehisi Coates, and he's the gentleman that's recently in the news with there was a Captain America comic book where they were representing the Red Skull as Jordan Peterson. This the same gentleman who did that comic book is going to be writing the screenplay for this film. So I am 100% positive that you are going to get racism on Krypton. If not racism on Krypton, when that young Kryptonian gets brought to this country, I assume that's what's going to happen. He's going to experience it his entire life. A lot of it. It's going to impact the story 100%. I hope it's not excessively about race, but it's being advertised as a black Superman, so you know it is going to be. Do you know what I mean? And I think that, I don't know, man. It's tough because I think with superhero films, sports, and a bunch of those other things, it seems like there's a really big conversation right now about whether the escapism should be teaching us lessons about some of these subjects that we should have learned about, you know, years ago, and how to deal with people who are different than us, and using these already established intellectual properties to start introducing more culture to the conversation. And I think that that's an interesting concept, but I also wonder if they would have been better served doing a black. I mean, look, man, the kind of conversation is Superman is going to draw more eyeballs than another comic book property would. That's generally like the argument for it, right? Like if we want to tell a black story and we want to get the most people viewing it as we can, let's use Superman, right? People love Superman, but that's not true, right? Guardians of the Galaxy almost made $1 billion. Man of Steel didn't even make over 700 million worldwide. Do you know what I mean? So people care about original characters. People are willing to go see the Eternals, and I have no idea who the hell those people are. Do you know what I mean? Like I said, I don't follow the comic books enough, so I don't have an issue with it, right? Like at the end of the day, as long as it's a well-made film, that's all I give a shit about. Like I said, I'm not a diehard comic book character. I don't worry about like, well, they have to check this box, this box, this box, and this box, because to be completely honest, I don't always know what those boxes are. You know what I mean? I didn't read the source material. With that being said, though, I have a lot of reservations about this film. I think that they're advertising it as a black Superman film, as opposed to a Superman film that just so happens to be led by a black director and a black actor. So race is a promotional factor, and that concerns me in anything. The thing that they're promoting to you always alarms me, because then your intentions are brought into doubt, right? Because it's not that you're doing it, that's great, it's that you're trying to sell to me that you're doing it. And that's something that concerns me if you've ever studied any sales techniques or anything like that. Oh, yeah. You know what I mean? Like the information that you give is incredibly important. But with that being said, I don't want any more Superman movies. So, I mean, like, I guess this is the most interesting version of one, because I probably wouldn't have cared. But now there's a part of me that's at least like, I guess we'll see where this whole black Superman thing goes. I am interested in seeing what it looks like. I think it'll be cool. I think for a lot of people, seeing Superman as a black guy is going to be dope enough as is, just for cosplaying purposes forever. My question, I guess one thing I want to ask you is, does it bother you that it's Kal-El, or do you wish that they would have made it an original character? Because I think that's one of the things that was bothering people a lot in this subject is it's not like it was another black Kryptonian who just so happened to land on Earth. It is specifically Kal-El is going to be black. Obviously, when he gets to Earth, I assume his parents aren't going to name him Clark Kent. But with that being said, it's still the same dude.
Yeah, you know, like I say, it just really depends on story wise where they're coming from, because it is. I mean, you just said like they're probably not going to call him Clark Kent when he comes to Earth, but I mean, I know a lot of black guys named Clark. I don't see anything too far
Yeah,
from the idea of like
exactly.
why he couldn't also be Clark Kent. Uh, So we bring up the point, like, again, the idea, what a lot of people look forward to in this media is that sense of escapism to kind of, you're getting into this new world, and a lot of times those worlds don't always draw directly from what's going on in
Mhm.
ours. But there's also been a lot of uh, ways in which it has. Like one of the biggest, moments in comic books was stream where I I'm terrible with names, but the Green Arrow's sidekick, Red Arrow, is that it? Am I
Yeah.
right?
Mhm.
Yeah, he gets addicted to heroin, and it's a really telling comic book strip because it's one of the first times where something so real like drug abuse is introduced into these stories,
Yeah.
and that's just one example, right? Like we could go on all day and probably have a
Oh yeah,
full
Tony Stark's an
podcast about,
alcoholic. Absolutely.
you know what
Yeah.
I'm saying?
Death
Like,
is the biggest one. They cover death probably excessively in comic book stories,
yeah,
but
and it's so those stories, while they're not as foreign of concepts to us as like, living under the water in Atlantis, or if you're,
yeah.
reading an Aquaman comic book, um, there's still times where it does tie the two together and it's great works. But the concern and the question is, like you said, in this case where it's a film, it's with a franchise that, I mean, if we're being honest, has there been like film wise,
Yeah.
like when's there been a good Superman movie? Like, hey, undoubtedly the Superman movie is incredible.
Yeah, most people would point back to like 1980. So it's been
Exactly.
40 years.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So it's already like you got that going for you on that end. Like if they did this to a character, they just had to select a super hero. Me personally, it'd be cool to see maybe Batman that way. I don't know why it
Mhm.
seems like Batman would work a lot more. Maybe it's because I've just seen Batman work in so many
No, I
different
want Static
ways.
Shock. See, I'm on the opposite end of you. I don't want that's I think that's my problem is I'm
Well,
sick of
I'm
seeing
saying
these
if they're going to
characters.
do it,
I get
I
what you
think
mean.
it
I
should have
agree
been.
completely. Or do
Yeah,
Green Lantern, that John
yeah.
Stewart. Do you know what I mean? Like that's built in right there. And that was another thing I'm curious about. I this is just a complaint, I guess. I don't like mantles. I don't like mantles. That's lazy to me. I like Green Lantern is a mantle, but it's built as a mantle, right? Like when this
Right.
guy loses the ring, it goes to another guy. Batman is not a mantle. Captain America is not a position. It's a guy. Does that make sense? Like Wonder Woman, when she
Yeah.
passes away, the next person who kind of looks like Wonder Woman isn't just Wonder Woman. That's dumb to me. Do you know what I mean? So I don't love the idea of mantles in the first place. But with that being said, this whole Superman isn't a mantle situation. They're just rebirthing the character as somebody different. But I did just want to point that out real quick because I know they do that a lot in comic books where that's how they get a guy in. Like, well, now that Thor is gone, here's the female Thor. She's Thor now. It's like, well, that's not how the position of Thor works. That's his title. Like, it's not a
Right.
title, it's his name. Do you know
And
what I
if
mean?
anything, like he didn't get the name of Thor because he could wield Mjolnir,
Yeah, exactly. Now,
the
if you want to
hammer.
give a separate character that hammer, I don't give a
Hmm.
shit. That doesn't bother me. The hammer doesn't go away when the character's dead. That makes logical sense. The same way that the Green Lantern ring just goes and chooses somebody else with strong willpower.
So it's you could go back and forth. We're not going to have a comic book debate because
Yeah, yes, we are.
I guess no. I mean, we could go over like
I
what
was joking.
mantles
Yeah.
may have more legitimacy than others, but I definitely get your point on that, and I also agree with you. Like, I would love to see a Static Shock movie.
Static.
I would
That's
love to
exactly what
see.
I'm saying, man. Give me something different. I'm even cool with them redoing Blade because it's like the only
I mean,
Blade I've ever really gotten has been the Wesley Snipes movies, and it's been
and
20
they're great.
years. And I don't want another Spider-Man. I don't want. Even if it's Miles Morales, dude, I don't care. This will be the fifth Spider-Man, or I guess it'll
Exactly.
be the fourth Spider-Man. But there's been, Jesus, 8 movies, and then when you count the Avengers and stuff, you're talking about like 11 films with the guy. So it's like even though it's Miles Morales, he still slings webs and it's called Spider-Man. Like, I don't know. It is what it is, though.
No, it's something where, like, your point you made about Guardians of the Galaxy, I think you can do that same type of idea where, for instance, how about you got this Luke Cage character? I mean,
Yep.
different side of the room,
Yeah,
but
give Luke Cage a
you
feature
gave
film.
him a
Try again with
story.
him. Yeah.
He, the first season was really good. Second season,
Yeah, that's
but you could do a lot more with it. You can work on it and build upon that by doing what you already did, like the characters, the not characters, but the actors they used in it. they didn't just choose like, oh well, this guy could kind of work for this. They picked some well-known names
Yeah.
to represent both their villains and of course the hero. Or yeah, yeah. So I mean that all in all, like I said, I really want the story to be genuine. If you're going to introduce these topics, which we know we're going to be there, as long as it's not something that's like overly over the top, kind of
Mhm.
like we want to be this kind of film that goes over, how does the world, that same question that got brought up in Falcon and Winter Soldier. How does the world perceive this figure that has always been this figure of heroism, of goodwill, of positivity, hard work, the American way, and now it's being represented by somebody who looks like another group of people that
Yeah.
have been marginalized and not really taken care of the best in that type of way. This like it just it's a change of face that you can't look at the same as something else. So the
Mhm.
concept is cool. It's just the execution has to match. If they half-ass this, it's not going to get let down, and it's going to just cause a whole nother heap of things that become really unnecessary because we're supposed to be watching movies for entertainment, not
Yeah.
to have a debate afterwards about did they do this part right or not.
No, I
It's
agree. I think, like I said, that's the thing that matters most to me is at the end of the day, as long as it's a well-made film, it's not the end of the world. It's not like they're erasing Superman and making him black forever. You know what I mean? Like people still get their white
right.
Superman if they really want. Is he
Now
gonna
the
land in
first scene is
Kansas?
like okay, so here's another thing. I don't want them living in
I don't want him
Harlem.
to land in Harlem. That's exactly
You
what
know
I
what
was
I'm
gonna
saying?
say.
Like
I
what?
don't want him to fucking land in South Central LA. Do you know
But
what
I
I
also
mean?
don't want to land in like racist Mississippi too. Not all of
I know.
Mississippi is racist, but
I
there's
get what you
definitely
mean.
racist
Yeah.
parts of Mississippi. So, hey, like I said, I'm
One of
not
the things
writing the
that I always
story.
liked about Superman, he grew up in Kansas, so he had to work hard, right?
Yes.
So he got like the American value, like the Midwestern values of like the middle class man who has to work his ass off with no elitism. So I hope he goes to a less populated area because I like
Michigan.
those values instilled. Yeah, man, have him born outside of Detroit somewhere. That's
You know
just
what I'm
being
saying?
selfish now. At this, now you just want him to be
Nah,
you.
nah.
I think you're just
I'm
put.
taking what you said. You said Midwest, hardworking,
Yep.
and but we want a little mix of both.
I think you're
Michigan.
petitioning for yourself to play Black Superman.
Nah, nah,
You're like,
nah.
you
I
know what would be
couldn't
cool
do it.
though? They made him look a little bit like me. No, I'm joking around. But yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, we'll see how it turns out. There are two major concerns, and that's what I'll end with. J.J. Abrams' name attached to it. He
Yep.
has a little bit of difficulty sticking the landing on projects. We've talked about that before in the past. And then, in addition to that, Ta-Nehisi Coates has never written a screenplay, and the comic books that he's written have been divisive, right? So, I mean, it is what it is. All right, next
Yep.
conversation that we're going to jump into. We're currently recording this on Saturday morning, so this isn't going to be as relevant now as it would have been if we talked about it last week. But Elon Musk is going to be hosting Saturday Night Live, and it caused people to throw a complete bitch fit. So my question to you is, first and foremost, what are your thoughts on Elon Musk? And secondly, what are your thoughts on people like Elon Musk, not just him specifically, hosting Saturday Night Live?
Um, my thoughts on Elon Musk in terms of just what I know about the guy. He's very inspiring. Like you want to talk about people who work hard to get to where they're at. I mean, that's a guy. Like he's a part of like we talked about. What is it? What are your ideas about billionaires? And
Yeah,
it's
not
kind of
as
a weird
positive
subject,
things
but
to say. Yeah,
not as positive.
yeah.
But with Elon, I don't get that impression. Like he's not somebody who, not to say you just look at someone you think they're underhanded, but he's
Hmm.
very open about the fact that like what he does. Like it's not something where oh you got to dig deep to figure out what's really going on behind the doors. Like no, he's on social media telling you,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm having a campfire on top of the giga plant in Texas right now, and um, on the weekends I do this and that. But most of the time it's him just working. It's him going from project to project, and their projects that not only are is he gaining money from, but is also with the intent of bettering humanity,
Yeah.
like trying to get us to outer space, knowing the fact that at the end of the day, this Earth, this place we're on, we're not going to have it forever. The resources are going to dry up, so we have to start looking outward than just kind of keep digging in. That's a big task, and that's a big commitment to make to basically just dedicate your life to working on these projects, meticulously taking all of the backlash, the doubters, everyone telling you you can't do this ain't making sense. Like I can't say for verbatim, but I'm pretty sure you've seen that interview where he was kind of, someone asked him a question like, "Hey, all these guys you looked up to,
Yeah.
once you finally got here, how was it?" And he got upset because it's like, yeah, you do look up to these guys, but then you get there and it's like they don't believe in you, they don't have
Yeah,
nothing
that was
positive to
specifically for
say.
him. They were all making fun of his product. You're referring to a 60 Minutes interview he did where he got a little
Yeah,
bit emotional when he was talking about the support that he did not receive from a lot of the other the companies when he was trying to do the electric car thing.
yeah, and you know that's something that's something that makes you look at guys like him, and it shows you that human aspect of, because we've all been there. We've all been there where we had certain hopes and dreams and ideas, and then we had some folks that got behind us and helped us, and we had other folks that basically told you, I don't know why you're wasting your time. And he proved it. So I definitely admire him on that, and I'm looking forward to SNL, mostly just because
You want to see what it looks like? It's like a car crash.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
It's a bit of like, because he's got humor, but his humor is very memey. So I don't know how you put that
Yeah.
on television. So we'll see.
So you don't have any issues with him hosting Saturday Night Live? You think they're just complaining about it for the sake of
Um,
it? The thing that caused concern, I guess, to give people context in case they don't know, this will be airing after he's already hosted. So for people watching, it's going to be like, oh, what's the issue? He already did it. But
right.
I'm hoping that they also address it too, to kind of kill that there were any issues at all in the first place. But when he was announced as the host of Saturday Night Live, one of the actors, I don't remember which one it was, but they posted something on Snapchat or something along those lines, saying like or something like an emoji. It was very like it was pretty ambiguous, right? Like it wasn't
Hmm.
definitively at Elon Musk. And then A.D. Bryant, who's been a cast member on SNL for a few years, right after they announced Elon Musk, posted a Bernie Sanders tweet basically saying that the top 1% should be disgusted with themselves because of the wealth disparity between them and us. But right after he was announced as the host, obviously everybody knows Elon Musk at one point last year was valued as the richest person on the planet. Um, then after that, there was another cast member who Elon Musk, which I guess this goes to show he has weird internet humor, tweeted, "Does anybody have any skit ideas for SNL?" And one of the cast members tweeted back at him, "Yeah, you should start by calling them sketches, LOL." And then it seems like there was a little more hostility within this. I believe NBC put out like a memo to the cast members that you have the choice to sit out this episode and it won't be held against you if you so choose. So that's one of the reasons why it's even a conversation as to whether or not Elon Musk should be hosting. It's interesting because Donald Trump hosted a few years ago while running for office, right? So if the concern is, because clearly they don't like Elon Musk, right? Like there are people who have issues
Right.
with him. I feel like in the last year or two, one of the primary concerns is that motherfucker was pretty anti-COVID at the beginning, right? Like a lot of the tweets that he was putting out made it sound like he almost didn't even believe that it was a real thing. So I feel
Yeah.
like that's probably the root of where people have issues with him at. To be completely honest, too, I hate saying it. The people that I grew up with probably hate him because he named his kid an equation. I know it wasn't an equation. It has something to do with his favorite airplane and all this other kind of stuff. But, you hear something like that in a celebrity and it's like, those guys are out of touch. Fuck that Elon Musk dude. Like, that guy's crazy. He's out there. He's one of those celebrity whack jobs. He's what happens when you get rich. You know what I mean? So I feel like that probably also emotionally has something to do with it. My issue would be that it's a non-comedian hosting Saturday Night Live, but let's be completely honest, man. When was the last time Saturday Night Live was consistently funny? And I don't even mean that as a
Yeah.
knock on this current cast. I mean, like, when you go back in history, there is way more bad Saturday Night Live than good Saturday Night Live. Even in the golden years that everybody talks about. Not every single sketch was knocking it out of the park. You're lucky to have one or two really memorable sketches a week, right? So SNL has always had a problem with that. But SNL has also always had very diverse hosts. I mean, you can go back as early as in the 80s, they had the network executive for NBC host Saturday Night Live. You know what I mean? And that's clearly bias. Like
You're
Elon
right.
Musk has no association with NBC, so it's not that kind of a thing. There have been presidential candidates who are campaigning for president who have used that platform to campaign. So this just seems like something Elon Musk wants to do. It's generated a lot more attention than I honestly think it should have. But I don't know, man. It's crazy. I don't understand what all the hate going to Elon Musk is specifically for hosting. A lot of these people were on the cast 5 years ago when Donald Trump was the host. And it feels like that would have been a lot bigger of an issue to those people than the Elon Musk thing specifically, especially how hard they've gone on him after he got elected. Like, you guys had him on and you let him host and you guys took it easy on him and so on and so forth. But I don't know, man. It's weird. I feel like this is honestly done for promotion, which is one of the reasons why I wanted to talk about it after it came out, which is when this
Right.
episode will be airing, because it's not going to be funny. It's going to be rough. Dude, Elon's awkward as hell, man. Like, he doesn't even do conversation fluently. So do you think he's going to be able to pretend converse fluently? Do you think his acting is going to be convincing? Have you seen Elon Musk in Iron Man 2?
Yeah.
Yeah. It's fun, you know what I mean? Like, the guy's getting a chance to live his dream, and it's cool. But with the exception of that moment where he mentions a specific cryptocurrency that stock is going to go through the roof when he does, I don't really see what people are looking forward to other than how bad can this possibly get? Because what's the best case scenario is it's not as bad as we expected. But he's not going to be hilarious. I'm willing to put my life on that.
Yeah. And, if he is, you're going to have to
No.
call that.
I'm willing to put my life on that. He is not going to be hilarious. Now, if
This
it's
is recorded,
hilariously
so
bad, that's not the same thing as him being hilarious. But I've seen him.
Fair.
He's not hilarious. That's not happening.
All right. I'm just saying or this is recorded. So
Yeah, no, that's cool. I'm putting my life on the line. I don't give a shit.
Okay.
If Elon Musk is hilarious, then the devil has my soul. There's nothing I can do about it
shit.
at that point.
Dude, there's Neuralink, man. He might have figured out some way to just turn that switch on.
Hey, that's cool with me, man.
No, seriously.
I didn't sign up for it, but go ahead.
Seriously, yeah, your point about the promotion is absolutely right. I mean, that's clearly why he's going to be the host. It's going to help them out, which I'm interested. I don't have the numbers to say, but like, I know for me, SNL started falling off like pretty bad a few years ago, where it was just like we used to watch it avidly.
Yeah.
I just stopped it. It got to the point where I'm like, okay, this is gonna, and it might have been around where it was the same time where the election was getting to be the way it was with Trump and Hillary,
Yeah, it's
and
getting a
that
little
seemed like to be
hostile.
the main
Yeah.
bit. So anyway, it wasn't great. So I don't know how they're doing right now, but if you got a guy coming that's going to draw views, I would think as somebody, if I was in that space and I'm one of these actors or I'm writing a sketch or something, I'm like, well, this is my chance. Like, everyone's going to be looking at this because this guy's going to be on here. I'm going to take this opportunity to do some good shit. And if he looks like an asshole or incompetent doing it, it's not going to make my shit look bad if I do it right. So that's kind of how I look at it. But I get your point. Like, there's people who aren't even on SNL anymore kind of speaking up about it. And, maybe I guess that's a lot of just personal opinion about the guy. I guess, like you said, I don't know what it is exactly that they might not like. And it could be the vaccine thing because, yeah, he had a pretty we shouldn't be closed down the way we should. And the way they're going about having people wearing face masks is not right. It was affecting his business a bit, but that's his opinion. So if he's going on there to just say, hey, don't get vaccines, don't have the guy on.
Yeah.
But I'm pretty sure that's not going to be a sketch, and I'm pretty sure he's not going to break character just to say some shit like that. So,
Well, he did tweet, we're going
people-
to see just how live Saturday Night Live is.
dude,
It was taped at 5.
I'm calling it right now. This
It was
is
taped at 5. That's
Doge
how they do it.
Night Live.
Yeah, I know. Well, I don't know. He might get. I heard he might get in legal trouble for mentioning it. Like,
Yeah, because
could be tough.
because Tesla bought well, that was Bitcoin, but Tesla
yeah, I remember they put that thing out where pay people in
Yeah, I
Bitcoin or
can't
whatever
remember
it was.
the full
Yeah.
facts of it, but they essentially did some part of investing into it just to kind of, he said, to prove a point, but then it caused Bitcoin to jump up like crazy.
Yeah.
So,
That point was
but
proven.
that's usually all the people who already have money bitching because,
Yeah.
hey, we can only manipulate the market.
No, I.
All right.
But to the point of Saturday Night Live, though, here's my thing. Saturday Night Live used to be an incredible opportunity because there were tons of comics who didn't have that kind of national platform, right? You got to think Saturday Night Live's been on the air for over 45 years, right? So when it debuted, it's not like there was a surplus of places for people to go put their jokes and stuff, right? If you're a performing artist, you did theater, and that was about the extent of it, or you got lucky and you got in films, you got cast on a sitcom. Well, here comes this sketch variety show, which they had variety shows. Those were a thing already. But here comes this variety show that's a little bit edgier than all of the rest of them. I don't know if you know the history with Saturday Night Live, but the very first host was Richard Pryor. And
Yep.
he did a sketch that is very controversial, even for these times, but especially for those times, about the N-word. And he just dropped the N-bomb on television multiple times, right? So it used to be a platform where a lot of these innovative artists could go perform at Andy Kaufman's, George Carlin's, stuff like that. And then as time went on, it became such a staple in Hollywood that it almost became the most commitment you had to make to a late night show, right? Like you go do Jimmy Fallon and Seth Meyers and Jimmy Kimmel and all this other bullshit. Now you promote through podcasts and stuff. Saturday Night Live is just a stop on that promotional tour now. But it's a stop that you have to commit a full week to. Do you know what I mean? And I think that that's
Right.
one of the things that's been hurting it for a really long time is it feels like obviously having a celebrity host draws interest on a week-to-week basis. But with that being said, it definitely hurts the show because if that host isn't somebody who's comedically competent, then it naturally drags down the rest of the cast a little bit. Now, don't get me wrong. You said yourself a moment ago something about the eyeballs, right? So if you're somebody who's got a really creative sketch, maybe we can get Elon to just stand in the background on this episode, right? There was an episode a few years ago where Ronda Rousey hosted, and I felt like they did a fantastic job utilizing her lack of acting abilities by having her generally do physical comedy. She would come in as this is my girlfriend, she's going to be doing this. And then she'd come in all big and strong, and that was kind of the joke, as opposed to letting her talk, which would have made the show a lot less interesting, right? So I guess if you can work around those things, then that's a great thing. But it feels like they do the opposite. It feels like they give him or whoever the host is 4 sketches that are based off of either something we know about them, whether it be a role that they've previously had or a commercial or whatever the case is. And then just a few of them where they focus on them specifically, which obviously, they're trying to highlight the host. That's the point of the show. But that's the problem, is they're trying to highlight the least funny person every week. And I think
Right.
after 20 years, you start realizing that's the problem with Saturday Night Live, is when you let the comedians do their thing, you have a much better show than when you try to focus in on the guy from Bridgerton. Or, you know what I mean? It's not a knock on the guy from Bridgerton, but he's not a comedian first, right? And you have a cast of comedic writers and comedic performers who have years and years of experience, and their job is how do we make this guy who's already really popular seem more likable and funny? And I think that innately that's the flaw with Saturday Night Live, especially in an environment where you can go on Twitter, and the shit on Twitter
Right.
is 100 times funnier. And the sketches that people have on YouTube are 1,000 times funnier because they don't have restrictions. They don't have network guidelines that they have to follow. They don't have a certain political agenda that it feels like they're regularly trying to push. I haven't watched Saturday Night Live in a few years. They've always been very left-leaning, even when I was a kid, so I'm not going to act like all of a sudden it got bad when they started bashing Trump, because I remember when I was a kid, they bashed the shit out of Bush. Do you know what I mean? So, it is what it is. It doesn't really bother me. But with that being said, it's always been that kind of a show, and I think what happens is when alternatives present themselves, you realize that we don't need this. This doesn't need to be here for another 45 years, right? And it's probably just
Right.
grandfathered in now at this point. So, with all due respect to Saturday Night Live and Elon Musk, I will not be watching this episode, and it has nothing to do with like a protest of the program itself. It's just, you were right. I watched a lot of Saturday Night Live when I was a kid. I used to record it and watch it every single week, and after about 2 years, on Sunday it became a chore. It started taking me 3 hours to watch it because I would watch it 2 sketches and then stop for a while because it wasn't doing that. Now, every once in a while, you get an episode that you realize you breeze through a little bit more. Like if Louis C.K. was hosting or somebody who was legitimately a comedian, if they had somebody who had good chemistry with the cast. But, yeah, man, it's Saturday Night Live's been on a decline for a while. I don't think Elon Musk hosting is representative of that. I think that we're just seeing the same things we've always seen with the program. And I think, like I said, when you start, I mean, man, people can go on their phones on TikTok and watch 150 sketches in like a half hour.
Right.
Or I can watch Saturday Night Live where we get a sketch, 6 minutes of advertisements, a sketch, 6 minutes of advertisements. And now, and this isn't even a knock on the cast, they lean way too heavy on the break thing, right? Like the only funny moments on Saturday Night Live are when they start laughing at their own jokes. And that's obviously a problem. So that's all I got to say about Saturday Night Live. Do you have anything else to add to that, or do you want to move on to the next subject?
No, we can move on. Like I said, it's Doge Night Live.
Yeah, we'll
really
see. He's the Doge
I think
father.
that's really the main thing that's what people are looking for. And I'm like you said, the stuff that I'm going to see from tonight is going to be the clips that I end up seeing on Twitter or Instagram about whatever interesting actually happened. So, yeah.
Interesting is also clearly a subjective term. Interesting means
interesting in terms of,
All right, so the next thing that I wanted to talk about then, we're going to take a complete 180, but we're also on the freak show business and entertainment. Floyd Mayweather and Logan Paul just had a press conference to promote their fight, and it got nasty, man. Have you seen some of the clips from that? I saw the most prominent video besides the one that we're getting ready to speak on is Floyd Mayweather was talking to Logan Paul, and he started going at him, and he said, like, I know what you did in Japan. I know what you did to Japan. I'm going to do it for Japan. On June 6th or whatever date we're fighting, I'm going to do it for Japan. And Logan Paul turned back around and went, well, I know what you did to your wife.
Yeah.
So it's two very unlikable people getting ready to go into the ring and beat the shit out of each other. And just when you thought things couldn't get any worse, you have a professional boxer who's known to be the greatest of all time fighting against a gentleman who has 2 professional fights and a professional record of 0 wins, 1 loss, and 1 draw. If that wasn't disgusting enough for you, the fact that these money-hungry whores are going out of their way to completely rip off every single fight fan in the world, Floyd Mayweather and Jake Paul got into a physical altercation because when they were face-to-face fighting with each other about signing the contract, Jake Paul snatched the hat off of Floyd Mayweather's head and ran away saying, I got your hat, to which Floyd Mayweather responded, I'm gonna kill you, motherfucker! I'm gonna kill you! I'm gonna murder you! You're dead! So these grown man children are making fighting look very bad. And we spoke a few weeks ago about whether or not the Paul brothers are good for fighting, and I said they have a place. I changed my mind. Their place is somewhere else besides fighting. What are your thoughts and opinions on this subject?
It's I found out before I found out about the video, I ended up seeing a post that Conor McGregor made about Floyd, and I remember thinking in my head like, he was talking shit about Floyd fighting these guys, but then I realized that no, he's actually responding to that altercation, and he's absolutely right. That shit was completely embarrassing. Like, you hold the pedigree of, like you say, arguably being the greatest boxer of all
TBE,
time.
Self-declared TBE, the best ever.
You know what I'm saying? You hold that title, and yet you're gonna let these kids get under your skin.
Bro, he grabbed the hat off his head. Like a fucking 8-year-old child. I got your hat! I got your hat!
How many killers he stood in a ring with and had to
Dude, he picked apart Canelo Alvarez. He made Canelo Alvarez look like an amateur boxer.
You know what I'm saying? And I feel like the only thing that's doing anything positive for boxing right now is the fight that he's got coming up with that...
Billy Joe Saunders?
Yeah, you
That's a good
know,
fight. That's actually tonight as well. We'll be able
yeah,
as of Monday, the results to that fight will be out. So,
you know, and
or as of
it's
today.
very sad because you'd hope that it'd be like he'd come in, he'd do his Floyd thing, talk a little shit, and when they try to get under his skin, just laugh it off. Like, all right, we'll see you in the ring.
Bro, Connor was in his face. They were calling Connor racist for some of the shit he was saying to Floyd, and Floyd was just sitting there like, all right, well, hey, when I get in the ring with you, it's over.
Yep.
Don't touch that motherfucker's hat.
Apparently, I mean, I don't know if you've seen his haircut underneath. I mean, I can't really talk
I was
nothing right now.
impressed. I mean, like, it's not a perfect hair, but I've never seen Floyd with that much hair, so I didn't realize the video was
Oh,
him
you know how he
initially.
got that, right?
Is it the LeBron thing where he drew it on?
No, it's transplant. I forgot from what though.
Oh, is that his ass hair?
Oh, you know, actually, I think I'm talking about his maybe his beard. I remember we talked about this off camera like a couple months ago. He made some post on Instagram, and he kept flying in my feed. I'm like, what's going on? And it was just people talking about he did something either with his beard or his head, and you could tell it was transplants. And all I'm saying is, who gives a shit? Like if that's
Yeah.
he's got the money to do it. Good for him. He's trying to
Absolutely.
do his thing, but it just doesn't look like it was finished. So he had a little.
That's why
bit
he
of
had the hat
Tory
on,
Lanez
probably.
going
Yeah,
on.
they'll be
It's
done the
probably,
week before fight week.
you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So it's all in all, my main thing is that took any tiny bit of interest I had to see Floyd toy with him. I don't care. Like, I don't, like you said, that I feel disrespected seeing something like that.
Yeah.
Like, you're supposed to be the guy to come in and clean this shit up. You know, you're supposed to get them out the door. You're done. You had your fun.
Man, he's been using them. That's my problem. Floyd Mayweather fighting Conor McGregor was disrespectful
Yes.
on the fighting level. But from a financial level, everybody's like, go get the bag. And we were just talking about this a second ago with Saturday Night Live. That's the problem. That's the problem in film. Go get the bag, right? Like, we need to
Yep.
make the biggest movie we can make for financial purposes as opposed to committing to creating a beautiful piece of art, right? Like, we're not going to go make the best film. We need to go make the most profitable film. Fighting. The best fights are generally the most profitable fights, but we've become so accustomed to a business that passes on these fights for years, and that's Floyd's fault, right? A lot of people give him credit for that. They say he's a smart businessman. And as much as I respect the business side of thing, I'm a sport fan first, right?
Yep.
I care more about the sport than I do the business of the sport. I wish that the business of the sport reflected the sport better in most instances. Like, I feel like if you have a position, like you're a boxer, you should have a little bit of say over who you fight. But at the same time, I also think it's important to have a body who gives you a mandatory challenger, so you can't just sit on an undefeated record for your whole career because you don't want to risk it against a guy who could potentially give you trouble. And listen,
Yes.
Floyd Mayweather fought the best of the best. So it's not entirely a knock on him, but he set the precedent with the Pacquiao thing. The biggest fight, we can make one way or the other, right? People are going to want to see it in 10 years, especially if it didn't happen. Like, look, man, Mike Tyson fought Roy Jones Jr. after both guys' careers had been devastatingly ended, right? I don't know if you saw the Jones the last time he fought that dude over in China. He got knocked out of the ring, knocked out, right? I don't know if you saw the last few fights of Tyson's career, but it wasn't pretty. He bit a guy's ear off. He ended up going to jail. Like, it was a bad thing for him. But here we are 20 years later, and just because it's Mike Tyson and Roy Jones, it did over 1 million pay-per-view buys, right? So it goes to show you that your value in fighting is bigger than people gave it bigger than people originally guessed, right? Who would have thought in the 80s Mike Tyson would still be fighting 40 years later almost? With
Right.
that being said, though, the sport is hurting because of it, because the best of the best aren't fighting each other. Gennady Golovkin fought Canelo Alvarez a year or two after he was the hottest that he had ever been, right? Anthony Joshua is going to fight Tyson Fury after Joshua has already been upset. Deontay Wilder, Anthony Joshua is not going to happen because both guys have already lost, right? We already missed that big fight. That's the problem in boxing so much. And Floyd Mayweather was the guy who started that trend. Not initially. Early in his career, when he was the challenger and he was the one that needed to prove himself, he got the fights against the big dudes. But once he was the guy, it was a little bit easier. You know, you kind of get to play around with the guys that he's fighting against more. And now he's in a position where the most profitable fight that he can take is against a YouTuber who I give mad props to. Both of those kids have absolutely committed to fighting. But there is a difference in the skill level between somebody who trains with professional fighters for 3 years, starting at 22, 23 years old, and a kid like Danny Garcia, or that's his name, right? Is it Ryan Garcia or Danny Garcia? I'm sorry, there's two fighters with that. Ryan Garcia is the young kid right now that's really popular, right? That kid's been going since he was like 12. He's been training since he was a young kid, right? He's already got 15 years of fighting experience, and he's barely 22, 23 years old. Do you know what I mean? Like, he's been doing this his entire life. His muscle memory is so ingrained that this is literally natural to him. Those guys are always going to have a significant advantage over guys who are athletically competent, like the Paul brothers are, because they're great athletes. But with that being said, Floyd Mayweather fighting Logan Paul isn't good for anybody besides those two dudes, right? Because everybody's like, we're going to watch Logan Paul get his ass kicked by Floyd Mayweather. People want to see Logan Paul get the shit kicked out of him, right? You want to see him fight Anthony Johnson in an octagon. Do you know what I mean? Like, they want to see him fight Khabib, where Khabib takes you to the ground and breaks your will, or Kamaru Usman, you know what I mean? They want to see you fight against a guy who's going to break you mentally. Floyd Mayweather is going to go out there. I mean, he's Logan Paul, so he'll give him maybe a half a round. Fuck it. Maybe he's like, this fight's going to generate a ton of interest. Let's go 3 rounds, right? Let's let him go 3. But he's going to sit on him. He's going to sit back, let him wear himself out. And he's just going to pick at him a little bit. Do you know what I mean? He didn't even put McGregor back on his back. It was a standing knockout, which, you know, it's still a knockout one way or the other, and it's tough for your brain. But at the same time, the audience isn't going to get exactly... You think Mayweather's going to go out there and Anthony Rumble Johnson kill the dude? Do you know what I mean?
No.
Like, you think he's going to knock his skull off? He's going to beat his ass, but it's not the thing that people want it to be. And I don't know. I think everybody was already kind of getting robbed in the first place. I think Floyd was legitimately upset by Jake Paul. I think he's going to go beat the shit out of Logan and then fight Jake Paul. And then Jake Paul's quest to get the biggest fight of all time happens. And nobody wins, because then when he loses, Mayweather's still retired. Jake Paul just got his ass kicked by the greatest boxer of all time. And now anybody else who wants to come in there and fight's not going to generate the same interest. And I don't know. You know what I mean? Like, it feels like this is being set up to lead to absolutely nothing besides the thing that happens right there. And I think that's bad for boxing, right? There was an opportunity here for somebody to benefit from this entire situation and potentially come out on top, right? That Dylan Dennis kid, that's Floyd or McGregor's boy, he goes in there and he fights and knocks out Jake Paul. Well, now this 3-0 fighter in Bellator's profile has risen. His stock is up. Something happens because of this. Nothing's going to happen. A retired fighter is going to fight against a non-fighter. They're going to make a fuck ton of money. Everybody's going to be ecstatic. And, yeah, no, it makes me sad, man. I've been a big fight fan my entire life, and it makes me really sad to see the fight game in the position that it is right now. I want to be optimistic about it. I want to act like I'm excited because the money's there and all that other shit. But the money's there for those guys. Do you know what I mean? Like, Jake Paul owns a part of Triller. So it is what it is. My apologies. I didn't mean to step on what you were going to say. I went on a little...
No, the point is that there's no competitiveness to this, or a lot with boxing, period, because of the fact that there's not this set understanding that once you get to that point, once you have the belt, you have a responsibility to defend that belt. And injuries aside, like, you get injured, shit like that happens. There's only so much you could do to that level. But even then, there's also a little bit of that, you know, as a champion, you have a responsibility to do whatever you must do to protect your body as well and keep that in shape.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
Something that has been pretty controversial with like the UFC, but I think overall has been a good thing, is that they're not worried about the idea of, oh, if the champion's out, what are we going to do with this belt? Does everything stop? Some guys, we've seen it definitely happen where things stop, and other guys
They sit on the
keep
belt
on
for a little
moving.
bit longer, yeah, because it's
You know,
Stipe or DC. Yeah, they sat for a year.
But it's usually, again, not always, but usually it is a guy like that though. It's a guy where you're like, hey, this isn't a guy who like I'm forgetting his name, light heavyweight champion Alexander Volkov. No,
Jan Blachowicz.
yeah, I was totally wrong on
Yeah.
that. He's not even
That's
a light
racist, I
heavyweight.
think.
But like if he wins the title against Reyes and then gets injured or something,
Hmm.
they're gonna give him a chance to come back. But I'm not surprised that if he's out longer than they expect, then they go to like the next who's the next
Oh
light
yeah,
heavyweight.
next fight up immediately. Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? But if it's Khabib, he stays the number one pound for pound
Yeah,
fighter
even though he
and
retired
champion,
6 months ago.
even though he retired in the ring because well, it's Khabib. How do we just let this go? Now, you got other guys that got something to say about that, and that weight class is amazing. But the point I'm making is you don't have that issue with the UFC that you do with boxing on every level. And with this, no, it was never thought that Floyd was going to go in. He's going to do this for boxing. He's doing it for himself, obviously.
Oh, yeah.
But when you see how it played out and how like these guys, they're professional trolls, but Floyd has always been kind of.
They won.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that was the best
like,
footage they could have ever gotten. That generated so much interest for that fight now.
So much. And all it had to do was he could have got mad, could have been like, all right, whatever. But it was now you got to chase this dude down and try to fight him outside the ring with bare fists. You know what I'm saying? Straight up. He called it out.
He was screaming, I'm going to kill you.
There was no questioning on his intent to want to kill that guy. So it's, like I said, it is sad. And there's nothing to look forward to in this. The only thing the only part of it that I was actually hoping might happen is that there's no play in it. Like with McGregor, like I said, he is a fighter, so there was enough back and forth to where the early rounds, like you could sit there and go, oh well, McGregor don't look bad, Floyd looks like Floyd, but let's see what happens. I was hoping this was just going to be you go in, do work, get out, get paid. Now, yeah, it's whatever's going to happen. Like I said, this will be like SNL. I'll find out on Twitter, and I'm sure we'll be talking about it at some other point because I'm sure there's going to be something stupid that happens.
People are very disrespectful when it comes to sports they don't fully understand, and I've had to watch that a lot. The other day, this is just a small side thing, we'll end on this. No knock on Pat McAfee. I know he just makes up content for the hell of it just to get through the day. But you saw this stuff with DK Metcalf trying to get into the Olympics?
Yeah.
So DK Metcalf, wide receiver of the Seattle Seahawks, I think he ran a 4.4.
My number one fan.
He's a big dude, right? Like he's a freak athlete. Don't get me wrong.
Yes.
But he made an incredibly moronic statement, which was, I could win an Olympic, like I could do well in the Olympics. I think I can run with the best runners. And that fundamentally shows he doesn't understand what Olympic sprinting is. There's a technique. It's not just being fast, right? It's the same thing as in fighting. A lot of people go, yes, you do technically have a better fighting chance if you fought MMA and you're fighting a pro boxer than a guy who's never boxed fighting a pro boxer, right? Like, logically, you've thrown punches before. Granted, your positioning is different in MMA. You're a lot more open because you use more parts of your body, so you have more parts to defend with. You can keep distance a lot. You can fight from a really far distance in fighting if you know how to use your kicks properly. That's something that Israel Adesanya is great at. He's great at keeping his distance.
If you know how to use your body movement correctly.
Yeah, exactly. Look at the way Dominic Cruz fights. Dominic Cruz fights with his hands down with a lot of really weird lateral movements. He changes direction a lot. You could never do that in a boxing match because it's hands up. You know what I mean? Like, we're just punching each other. Right? But then when Dominic Cruz can change, he can change levels, and he's got his hands in a good spot. So if he wanted to, he can grab your leg and try to take you down. That doesn't apply when you're in a boxing match. And a lot of people don't fundamentally understand that. They think fighting is just fighting. The same way that they think running is just running. Do you think that the people who've been training specifically for how to get that burst at the right moment when running a 100-meter dash are seeing a professional football player say, I could outrun them? To the point of the Pat McAfee thing, they did it was just a for fun bit, but they did a bit where they were naming NFL players. They're going to do the country of the NFL in the Olympics. Who are we taking and who are we going to have represent what? And I know it was a joke, but they said we could win like 4 medals. No, you're going to win 0 unless the event is football. They said if we gave them 6 months that we could make these people better than the people who, because it's not like the people in the Olympics are incredible athletes. Do you know what I mean? Like Usain Bolt's the fastest person of all time. Is he not a good athlete because he's not in the NFL? Do you know what I don't know. It's just a really weird mindset around it. But you see the disrespect. Like if you don't understand a sport, people go like, well, that can't be that hard. It's like in boxing, man, we just mentioned Ryan Garcia. He's been training since he's like 12. That's 10 years of experience when you're 22. Do you know what I mean? Like you can't, like gymnastics, man. Oh my God. My fiance coaches gymnastics. A lot of these kids start when they're like 3. Yep. So by the time that you're Simone Biles and you're 16 in the Olympics, 17 in the Olympics, you've already had 15 years of experience. And your body's in its prime physical condition. You know what I mean? Like it's harder to get injured when you're that young. Like your body hasn't had as much wear and tear. And there are people who think that like, because LeBron James is a freak athlete, if you gave him 3 months, he could go win a gold medal in gymnastics. And it's like, that's not how that works. So to say these things in fighting is even crazier to me. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah, those mechanics that are built into the sport itself that get engraved into you because of, like you said, that muscle memory. It's muscle memory, but it's also just very mental. It's a whole different understanding of what exactly are you looking for. Like it's one thing to understand, like, okay, for instance, let's take it to something that's easy for anyone to understand, and like I say, we can move on. Steph Curry and shooting the ball. It's a simple concept to try to learn how to shoot good and understand how to get a perfect arc and all that. And you see it all the time on videos where you'll see a random kid shooting shots on Instagram, like, oh, he's got really good form. Oh, yeah. You could hear that from NBA players, but just because he's got really good form and he's doing everything perfectly, he's still not a Steph Curry.
Under pressure with other people on the court, with alternate factors.
All those things play in it. So it's not only just the body mechanics. It's not just the body mechanics. It's not just the motor skills that you have to get fine-tuned. It's the mental capacity too. Yep. And you go from a sport like football where that's a whole nother mental thing. You got to get underhand. You got to, you know what I'm saying? You got to get to your point. Like the one similarity is, okay, you got to get ready to get off the ball as quick as you probably have to get ready to get off a shot. But here's the difference. You got a guy saying hike, and then you got a gun going off. Oh, yeah. That seems like, why is that too different? But
lateral movement sometimes. Receivers start off with a juke step as opposed to going immediately and sprinting out at you. So it's not like you're just jumping off the line.
A sprinter start. Yep. You know, so it's like we could go back and forth about how that's just fundamentally not true. But like you said, it was to make content. The issue is, to somebody who doesn't understand that, they didn't take that and look at something like Logan Paul and Floyd and think, oh, well, maybe, Logan Paul might be able to do this. All right. So, yeah.
That was Austin Tyson. That's the segment on Monday Night Raw where Mike Tyson was in the ring and Stone Cold was like, you may be the world's toughest, or you may be the baddest man on the planet. Well, I don't give a damn. I'm the world's toughest son of a bitch. And then he pushes him. You know what I mean? Like, that's what that was. And then people want to watch it now. They're like, I want to watch. He's fighting Floyd Mayweather. But it is what it is. It's a weird place to end
a little different.
Always end it off on a Stone Cold thing if we possibly can. That would make me happy every week. I know it's a bit abrupt, but we've reached our hour. Thank you guys for listening. It's been a fun episode of Sacred Time. I'm Dennis Kaminsky. He's Maurice Starr. If you want more things Sacred Time, you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Sacred Time Pod. On YouTube, make sure you like and subscribe, because then that does stuff for the algorithm, and I don't really know what any of that means, but they say it helps. If you want to follow him on social media, you can do so on Instagram and Twitter at Big Blurred. Thank you for watching, and have a good Monday week time.
Have a good Sacred Time.